You're listening to Show Me the Numbers with Yael Kagan, only on LA Talk Radio.
Good afternoon from Los Angeles. It's on a Wednesday, 12 noon, on my weekly show on LA Talk Radio, Show Me the Numbers. I'm Yael Kagan. I'm a hypnotherapist. I'm mastering in neuro-linguistic programming, also known as NLP, and mastering in numerology, both Western and Kabbalic. I'm also the author of the book published almost a year ago, Unlock Your Child's Potential, which is a guide to parenting through numerology. It's available in English as shown, and also in Hebrew, can be purchased directly through Amazon or through me. And like every week, I bring a guest, and this week I have with me a very known psychologist here in the LA area, and I welcome Liron Samara, my guest today. And we're going to wait a second before we can get her on the screen. She's with us. Here she is. Hi, Liron.
Hi.
Welcome to my show. And before I hand the microphone to her, I do want to tell you so that you know, she's very known here in LA. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist specializing in anger management and relationships. We will touch both of them. She is the owner of a private practice in Woodland Hills, California, called Therapy Ties. She is also very known here in the community. She's one of the founders of Beyachad. Beyachad is a nonprofit organization that helps Israeli families in Los Angeles in time of need, and we will definitely touch that as well. And I do want to hand the microphone to you, Liron, so that you can let the audience know a little bit more about you, where you grew up and study, and give us a little bit so that we know more about you.
So thank you so much for having me. Very exciting. Very humbling presentation. So
it's
very
yours.
nice. Thank you very much. So yes, I'm Liron Samara, happily married, a mother of 3 beautiful kiddos. Started my journey about 14 years ago, including school, internship. I went to UCLA for my bachelor's, Philippa University for my master's, did my first internship in school. And then a dear colleague of mine kind of sent me this ad about anger management practice that needs an intern. And I just found it interesting. So I sent a text, went to an interview, fell absolutely in love with the owner. Still not knowing where I'm heading myself into, right? Still had no idea what anger management was. But as I started the training, I noticed how much of the anger management is part of us Israelis and how much is part of our culture. And I remember all the aha moments having on the way of like, oh my God, it's not a bad thing. Anger is not only bad. And suddenly looking at that with tools, I had an urge to get to people who felt lost in their anger and felt lost in their feelings, and kind of bring the news. Guys, it's not hopeless. It's not all bad. We can figure it out and we can talk about it. And from there, I always had a passion to work with couples. It's something that very interests me, that on one hand, we have something that we can say the most common failing business in the world, marriage, right? And with the years, we're just seeing increase in divorce rates, yet people still getting married, people still like this business, and you cannot stop and wonder what's going on there and why people want it so much. So I started working with couples with my knowledge of anger management, and I think I want to open parenthesis and kind of say about anger management that anger management is the publicized, politically correct term to use for anger management. In reality, in my clinic, anger management is just emotional management. But if we will call it emotional management, no one will feel the crisis to come and work on it. Who wants to talk about emotions, right?
Yeah.
So I started working with couples and relationships, and in the last, I want to say, few years, I am really drawn into relationships, not only between two people and significant others, but more than ever, relationship with the self. So a lot of the work that I do with my clients, even in couples therapy, is kind of highlighting that the way we see ourselves and the way we love ourselves and the expectations we have from ourselves, that's what we're going to mirror back to the world. And that's pretty much where I'm at now. Love, love, love my work. Very passionate about that. You asked me where I grew up. I half grew up in Israel, half grew up here. Literally half half. I moved here when I was 16. I moved here with my parents. Very challenging teenage time to say goodbye to my friends and start all over again. But as a believer, I believe everything is right on point. And I got here right on time to finish high school and do college, and I think it's very much my personality today. I'm Israeli and I'm American, and I find both cultures in me, and I think it's a great blessing.
100%. And I think all of us, the Israelis, it doesn't matter which passport you have. We have both, but we always feel whether it's
100%.
American Israeli or Israeli American, it's something in our blood, and it's part of our mentality and how we were raised. And it doesn't matter if you were raised with American or Israeli parents here in the U.S. You are still raised as Israeli. This
100%.
way or another. And I do want to dive first into talking about relationship. I'm not even talking just marriages, but relationship, because I see it also in my practice that, I mean, it became sort of a pandemic. I mean, it's like so popular to get divorced, and it's bringing it to the point that people are afraid to get married, because instead of thinking about the positive about it, they think about, but what if we get divorced, which is a shame, but it's, that's where things are. And that's why I love to discuss it, because I think people need to be more educated, especially from people like you. And I want to ask, like, what are the key factors that contribute to a healthy and lasting relationships? I would say especially in marriages, but not just in marriage, in relationships.
I think first and foremost, like by far the most important factor is being authentic. And being authentic means I have a good relationship with myself and I have a good communication with myself. Therefore, I can communicate to you what I need, what I want, what I'm scared of, what I love. How do I want to be loved? Right now, it will never be 100%. I mean, masks are there for a reason and we do need to protect ourselves. But if I need to say that the majority of your time you're able to be present as you, and even if you're not present as you, but you are knowledgeable and insightful enough to know where you kind of had a moment that it kind of snuck out, you kind of weren't you at the moment, and you can come back to it and talk about it, I think by far you will have a very high chance of having a beautiful relationship. Because if I'm there as me and you're there as you, then we're not fighting about who's right and who's wrong and how did you say this and how did you say that. We can just communicate and say, hey, Yael, I like when you do this. Can you do that more? Or, I really got hurt from something. So I would say by far the most important thing in my eyes is being authentic and being you. If I need to think about few other factors is good communication skills. And when I say good communication skills, we need to understand and realize we didn't all grow up in the same households, and our communication skills are different. But understanding your strengths and understanding your deficits would 100% help you. So if I know I don't like confrontations and I work on myself on how can I communicate myself without feeling intimidated, right? So back, I am aware of my deficits and I don't put it on other people, then I can communicate myself. So if I need to do it through messages, if I need to do it through, I don't know, there are plenty of things, but being accountable for your communication skills. And I think one more, if specifically to intimate relationships, there is something that I see, it's like a phenomenon I see in my practice a lot of times. It's that we're really great with our friends, not as great with our spouses, right? If your girlfriend will call you and tell you that she needs you, you'll be there in no time. You will just be there for her and whatever it may mean. When it's our spouses, we allow ourselves not to. When it's our spouses, we allow ourselves to just be short, just be not patient enough. And I feel that, not I feel, I think that if we would treat our spouses as our best friends with all the intention of loving them and being there for them, there is no reason why it's not going to be successful.
I agree 100%. And I think that's one of your strongest message here for everyone. And when I bless people when they get married, for instance, I always say, stay the best friends. Because yes, there are
100%.
other things, but stay best friend. The spouse you chose needs to be your best friend, because after all, that's, I think, the glue in a relationship. And I liked you mentioned the people not being authentic enough. And do you think that there is a lot of contribution to all the social media? Because after
Um,
all, and it doesn't matter how authentic we will say that we are on social media, most cases people are not authentic. And yes, there was always that honeymoon stage in every relationship. I understand that, but I think it's 10 times stronger now. Do you think it's part of the problem that the beginning of the relationships, the way they start, whether it's, all kind of apps or just regular social media, that's part of the problems?
I don't think it's how it starts that it's part of the problem. I think that as a whole, social media and the effect of social media is a problem. What I mean by it is, the constant comparison on this couple and that couple, on, oh, they go on vacations and they have money and they buy brands and they go on restaurants and look, he bought her a gift and you didn't, right? So this whole social social media paradigm where this is not authentic and that's not reality, and I'm comparing my relationship to something that it's unachievable, it's not real, it's enigma, it's, you know what I mean? So that's the problem. And the social media in general, there is a constant feeling of lack. I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not thin enough, I'm not rich enough, I don't have enough friends, I don't have enough followers. There is always not enough, but you will never have enough, because who are you comparing yourself to, right? When we grew up, all I knew is that my friend, she was married, I was married. I mean, back then when people got married, you knew what people told you, you knew what people exposed you to, right? And
Right.
now, for good and bad, people are being exposed to things that it's an overload. So also, social media and anxiety nowadays, look at the anxiety rates, that it's just
And depression also.
right, right, right. And again, the anxiety, the fear, you talked before about feeling scared of getting married. There's also a big FOMO, a fear of missing out. I mean, you see all those single people on Instagram, you have a fear to commit yourself to one. I mean, how do I know she's the right one? How do I know this is the right one, when I feel as though the world has so much to offer me, right? So I'm not going to settle in. So I don't think it's how it starts. I think social media in general is a problem. that we hold it as the truth when
Right.
we all know it's everything but the truth.
Right. And you mentioned at the beginning also, I got, it was exactly how I see things is that the relationship with ourselves. So self-love. Before you can love someone else, you need to learn to love yourself. And who am I? What is my personality? Before we used to ask, who is your role model? Who are you trying to look like? What is your model for relationship? It used to be your parents, maybe your grandparents. People are now, I even hear them comparing themselves to people on social media or TV, when again, this is not reality. You cannot try to be someone who doesn't really exist. This is not true. And I think people are lost a little bit. And if you are not certain with who you are and who you want to be and what is the relationship you are looking for, how does that really affect, first of all, the people that we are attracting to, the relationships that we are looking to attract to, and then managing that relationship.
Right, and you're touching something very important. There is a big difference between what I want and what I need, right? So
Right.
people say, I mean, I'm sure you experience it. They come to your practice and they tell you how much they want someone loving and caring and this and that. And then when they find someone loving and caring, they're like, no, they're too boring. That's not for me. Right? But wait, is that what you want or is that what you need? Right? Are you trying to be Instagrammable, or are you trying to really create a relationship that is long lasting?
100%. And that's part of our problem, I think. And it's taking me
100.
back to self-love, but I do want to go back into communication, not only because one of my passions is obviously also NLP, and we communication can be taught, but I do want to ask you how crucial, I kind of like know the answer, but how crucial is communication in maintaining a strong marriage, and what techniques do you suggest for couples struggling with communication breakdowns?
It's very crucial. If I cannot communicate my needs, how my spouse can be there for me. No, I don't come with a guide of what is how to make me happy. And I'm sorry, no one needs to make you happy. You, the only one who needs to make yourself happy. You, the only one who needs, to make yourself happy. But what I'm trying to say, if I don't have directions of what my husband needs and what hurts and what he loves, how would I know? So communication is very, very crucial, very crucial. But within communication, there is such a variety of how we can communicate. So, few keys is it, and we're going to touch on anger management later, but few keys is when you're overly emotional, that's not a time for a deep, important conversation, right? So, all of us grew up with the saying that when we are angry, we don't think, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a saying. It's not just saying physiologically, when you are emotional, when you are angry, you don't think because you're in a survival mode. And in a survival mode, your brain doesn't want you to think. Your brain wants you to be instinctive. Your brain wants you to survive.
Right.
So if I'm very angry or frustrated or upset at the moment, I cannot come to my husband and have a conversation because there will never be a conversation,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's number one. Number two is do not argue in the car. Do not argue in your bedroom. Okay, those are
Text
two places.
messages.
Um, Text messages, I wouldn't argue, but it's far fetched that people won't. It's such a common way of communicating. What I would do is write a message, don't send it, wait 10 minutes. If you still like the message after 10 minutes, then send it. But really work on the muscle of patience and the muscle of letting yourself kind of reflect before you respond. And we call it responding instead of reacting, right? So it's not a knee jerk reaction. I take a moment. Another thing is, if your husband or your spouse or your wife sent you that message, would you like it? Would you feel respected and loved? remember the best friend, would you send this message to your best friend?
Mm-hmm.
The last one that I'll give is, whenever you have a problem, remember you are the one who has the problem, right? So I want to tell Yael, don't yell at me. I don't like to be yelled at, right? A lot of people feel like, oh my, she yells at me. She doesn't know to yell at me. I'm not going to allow it. Right. But it's your problem when people yell at you. You don't like it, right? So this whole concept of understanding what I don't like, what I don't want, but more important, what I do want. How do I want? And speaking from an I perspective, I don't like to be yelled at. If you want to have a conversation with me, please lower your voice. Okay. I think communication, it's such a big, I don't need to tell you that, it's such a big umbrella.
Right.
But the more you have open communication with yourself, the better you're going to be able to communicate outside of you. I think I think one of the biggest problem is that sometimes we don't even understand why we feel what we feel, and we expect other people to understand us.
Right. And it's interesting, by the way, you were talking about loudness. Israelis are loud. And many times
Mhm.
people say, why is he screaming at me? Or why is he, and we just talk this way, but
Mhm.
it's needed to be understood. But it's in communication, I want to include, it's not just what we say, is I at least see people that are not listening. And if you are working with your spouse or whatever couple, and someone is telling you, but you are always pushing me to a corner, and you keep saying, why is he saying I'm pushing him to a corner, or you are ignoring it completely? I mean, don't you think that that's something that needs to be learned? It's not just what we say, is also learning to listen to the other without judging it.
Yes, yes. And I think you're touching on another subject in communication, which is boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you right now speaking in an intensity that is too much for me, and I'm not able to listen to you, but I don't feel comfortable telling you, hey, Al, that is too intense, then I'll check out. Okay. If you have a complaining conversation with me every day, you're exhausting the system. I'll
Mm-hmm.
check out. Okay. So the responsibility of the listener is to say, hey, I'm not capable of having this conversation today. For instance, my husband knows if I had a day full of clients, when I come home, even if I really, really want to, I'm not able to have deep conversations. My brain is like a sponge. All I want is to decompose, have my time to myself. He can be with me, he can be next to me, but there is no expectation of having important conversations, and there is no expectation because I place the boundary there, saying, "Hey, I love you. I care about our conversations. Please, when I come back from a long day, that's not the right time." Right? So yes, it is also about listening, but it's also about boundaries and understanding your limitations.
Mm-hmm. Got you. I agree 100%. And I want to dive a little bit. I mean, we can talk about relationships forever. And I think in
Mhm.
almost every show I bring it up because it's very interesting. I actually want to ask you that when you work with couples, I mean, in many times, at least I see that couples are coming, bringing, a situation, and they are almost expecting you to be the judge, to say
Mhm.
you're right or she's right, and you see, but she said I was right. She took my side, which obviously we are not supposed to be there, and that's our biggest challenge. But how is it different? What do you do that you can contribute? So if people are looking for, couple therapy or something, what can you contribute? What is different that you see and that will have more success in relationships therapy?
I think